Zach got there and I finally got a piece of plywood up. That was pretty scary.
And Zach had a headache for most of the night.
Yeah.
Did he have any nasal irritation or red eyes or anything?
He was just complaining of a headache, so they got out of their place and came up to mine.
Okay.
And hung out there for most of the night, and then we couldn't smell it, so then they went back down. They live about a quarter mile away, right at, not too much past the end of Hinalo.
I'm going to interrupt just to say that Carrie's going to video this, and anybody that wants to get a video, a statement, you know, at the end.
Yeah, and also if you want to say something not on video, feel free and Carrie will shut it off and we'll listen to you. It's just we're trying to be sure we don't miss the documentation of it.
Sorry, Jim.
It's okay.
Dave?
I didn't smell anything.
I got a call at 8:30. I got a call at about 8:15 that the plant relief had lifted, that Daryl was having trouble getting a hold of PGV, and that he wondered if I could tell folks in the neighborhood. And I tried to call Bob, and Bob and I talked a couple of times. I left a message for Paul, but I made the estimate that driving from my house to PGV was too risky, and so I stayed put at home. And at some time, I got a call at 6:38 that they just secured the emergency steam relief lift.
6:38?
8:38, and shortly thereafter I lost phone, and so after that I don't know too much what happened. And I live far enough from the plant that we didn't smell anything. However, today, driving by the plant, we smelled something, and Laura smelled it and got nauseous and threw up and got a bad headache. So I'm not sure, I tend to agree with Bob, I'm not sure that the plant is completely shut down and that there can't be a possibility of leaks. I think something's happening there.
So to add to the data, one of our teachers here, Terry Walker, this weekend drove by Yoga Oasis and smelled it and got an instant headache, and she asked me to relay this to the group, and I will ask her for a written document.
Or video.
A little more info. Zach got a hold of Civil Defense, and they told him to evacuate.
During the hurricane.
Yeah.
I spoke to them and I've been trying to find out, should I evacuate? No one told me to evacuate.
They issued a public over the radio evacuation.
But
No,
I
no,
didn't
if
have
you're
power,
feeling ill.
so I didn't have.
Huh?
If you're feeling ill.
What it said was, if you're feeling uncomfortable.
Yeah, that's, if you're feeling
Drive out into
uncomfortable,
the
it's your
hurricane.
choice
Drive
to
into the
leave.
hurricane and drive up to the Pahoja.
Yeah, well, true. You know, plants are
And
here
good
for- Watch out
luck.
for trees.
We have many things planned, or we have 3 or 4 things planned, but one of the things we're going to do, can I read the letter real
Yeah,
quick,
sure.
Bob? One of the things we're going to do is we're going to have a open letter to Governor Abercrombie, both senators, both representatives, Mayor Kanoy, and all of the state legislators.
And it'll be CC'd to EPA because we're already.
And it'll be CC'd to EPA Region 9 because we're already in discussions with them. And I'll read the letter because it gets to some of the things that you're talking about, and it may be easier just to read it now so you know that where we're headed. The title of the letter is Incompetence or Indifference. An open letter from Puna Pono Alliance and, I don't have the words right, but the Hawaii Island Sierra Club, to the folks that we mentioned. Just before the landfall of Hurricane Iselle on August 7th, 2014, Puna Geothermal Venture went offline and began a release of geothermal fluids and noxious gas through the plant's emergency steam relief system. The release dumped the noxious gas into the community surrounding the geothermal power plant for some time. Residents, trapped in their homes by the hurricane reported smelling hydrogen sulfide at perceived levels higher than they had ever smelled before. We've talked to several that have said that. Several developed symptoms that could be associated with exposure to hydrogen sulfide, and one man passed out for an hour, possibly due to exposure. Many questions will need to be asked about the cause and consequences of this upset, but one question can be asked right now. Why was the plant operating when Hawaii Electric Light Company, PG&E, and state and county regulators all should have known that operating the plant during a hurricane would possibly, in fact, probably lead to an upset? To understand why the decisions made or not made by HELCO, PG&E, county and state regulators need to be called clearly into focus, we need only to review the last major upset at PG&E on March 13th, 2013. On that date, PG&E was operating near its maximum power, and maintenance was being performed on one of the 2 transmission lines that take that power from the geothermal plant to the rest of the island. A malfunction on the 2nd transmission line caused a loss of load at PG&E and a loss of electricity to some of the rest of the island, forcing the plant to instantly go from full load to no load. This caused a dangerous overpressure condition in the power plant, which required the emergency steam relief system to dump geothermal fluid with high concentrations of hydrogen sulfide into the air. Discussions between the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, the State Department of Health, the County Civil Defense, and the community continue regarding corrective actions stemming from this incident. Now, 17 months later, we learned that PG&E was operating at high power during the landfall of Hurricane Iselle. Anyone who understood the causes of the March 13th, 2013 upset cannot help but be perplexed by this fact. Were HELCO, PG&E, and state and county regulators simply indifferent to the potential danger to the community, or were they incompetent? Any intelligent, informed person clearly understands that transmission lines will be lost and electric grid malfunctions are likely to occur during a hurricane. Any reasonable person with knowledge of Lower Puna knows that during even a local storm, access to PG&E is difficult due to falling trees. Certainly anyone with knowledge of Lower Puna knows that evacuation of residents during high winds, if possible, is dangerous due to falling trees. And yet we now understand that PG&E was operating probably during landfall of Hurricane Iselle. Although we do not know what caused the geothermal plant release of geothermal fluid and noxious gas to the air on the night of the hurricane, we do know that such an upset could have easily been predicted based on the March 13th, 2013 incident. We also know other things. We know that as hydrogen sulfide was pouring into the community, the hydrogen sulfide monitoring samplers provided by the State Department of Health went out of commission during the storm and apparently remained out of commission for several days.
You're going to need to fix that, because 3 of them are operated by PG&E.
Okay. We know the fire department's hazardous material team could not reach the area to monitor for hydrogen sulfide due to falling trees and hazardous conditions. We know that County Civil Defense ordered evacuation for residents feeling effects from exposure when such evacuation was either impossible or highly dangerous. The evacuation would have required exactly the same roads impassable to the hazardous material team.
Okay, Tom, I'm sorry, Wendy?
Uh-huh.
Wendy is disputing that they ordered an evacuation. Would you tell me?
No,
That
they
they
ordered,
suggested.
there's
You
an
need to
evacuation
evacuate,
control.
someone had the language, if you're feeling
Yeah,
uncomfortable.
yeah,
But in
yeah.
the same moment, they weren't letting EMTs or the ambulance service operate because it was too
Yeah.
dangerous for them.
Yeah.
I just
So it's
wanted
a very
I
conflicted
I just wanted
message.
her to know that we understood.
Yeah. Of course, people are hurt and equipment is damaged in a hurricane. The community is grateful to the first responders and relief providers that have worked so hard and done so much in Lower Puna. But the problems noted with the order to evacuate have been identified and then ignored by political leadership for years. We know Hawaii County emergency procedures recommended by the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency have not been fully implemented by the county. The EPA audit by the specifically recommended county procedures be developed with the community for accidents at PGV. We know that after Hawaii Island County Council passed an ordinance requiring creation of emergency procedures for PGV and practice of those procedures, the ordinance was vetoed by the mayor, who claimed additional procedures and practice were unnecessary. We know that the state monitoring system criticized in the Geothermal Public Health Assessment Report, published almost a year ago, have not been addressed by DOH. And we know that DOH has not visited or shown interest in health effects either caused by the current upset or the upset on March 13th, 2013, even though the department has been invited by the community several times. Now is the time for our political leaders to forcefully address these issues and, most importantly, follow through to be sure that they are corrected. And Bob's going to sign that as the president of PPA.
But I'm wondering if we shouldn't add another paragraph that would say PPA believes that the PGV power plant should be shut down until such time as a monitoring system that works is in place, and an emergency response plan is in place. I think we should put a paragraph in there asking that they should.
Concur, Bob. I'll do it.
Protocol around storms.
Yeah,
Well,
well,
safety, and then-
it's bigger than that, you'll see, but if we.
Now's a good
anyway.
time, no one's got power.
We got the power.
Well, you know, if Abercrombie would've gave that 4.9 million he spent to solar systems, we probably wouldn't even need it. Sorry.
Can I say something? One thing I'm concerned about, because of the order word, if they could, do one of their slimy, oh, that wasn't an order, and ignore everything else in the letter. So I am concerned about using that word unless we're absolutely sure there was an order given and not just a suggestion. And then-
What order was
For the
that?
To evacuation.
Oh,
It wasn't an order.
no, we have the exact word. We have the record.
But before you sign it, it's
I will,
listed.
and we're actually working with Daryl from Civil Defense, I'll talk to him about it.
Thank you. And then I have another question was, somebody thought, speculation of course, that there weren't enough actual workers there at PGV at the time of the hurricane, and they couldn't get back there
They
to.
could not get there, that is true.
Okay.
Mike couldn't get there, and Ron, they had a difficult time getting there.
The
So it was a
masters.
skeleton
Okay.
staff, you
Skeleton staff, that maybe should
During
be
a
put in
During
there.
a hurricane, well, we don't know for sure, but we should
Okay.
ask the
We
question.
could ask the question. And the other thing is, I would suggest CCing this to Ige, Iona.
Yes.
Joy.
We'll be done.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay,
It'll be CC'd to everybody.
yeah.
And Chris Lee and all of them.
And in
Everybody wanted-
fact, as soon as the letter's finished and it's signed, it's gonna be sent to the Honolulu Advertiser, the Tribune Herald, every newspaper we can find, including probably some off island.
Yeah, one comment.
We think it's a very serious
Corey's got
deficiency.
It wasn't even a hurricane, it was downgraded to a tropical storm.
Right.
So imagine if there's a real hurricane.
Can I talk to that just a second, because this
show
gets
the
into
video?
the setting, the second issue, which is the voting disenfranchisement that some people are putting. If we have a picture, and I can show it to anybody afterwards, but Nelson sent it to us, and it showed wind speed. And what happened is the hurricane's coming in and the eye's off the island. And the tremendously high winds in the northeast quadrant hit the tip, right where we are, hit the tip of the island. And then the hurricane, the front end of the hurricane after it hits the tip runs into the mountain. The eye's still out in the ocean.
Sure.
But the front end of the tip is in the mountain, and it just knocked the hurricane immediately from something that was pretty big to something pretty small. And then some very low winds. When the eye hit, there were some very low winds south of here, 40 or 50 miles. And so the initial reports of all the hurricane, now a lot of this is my conjecture, you can't quote this, but I've just studied that print, I'm pretty sure I'm right. South of here, what happened was that when the eye hit, it was a very weak storm of 35, 45 miles an hour. And so it took, I don't think Civil Defense knew there was a big problem in Lower Puna in terms of trees and homes destroyed and stuff. I don't think they realized that until sometime late Friday. I think until late Friday, they thought everything was okay. Because if you read all of the reports and stuff, none of them talk about Lower Puna, and yet Lower Puna suffered most of the damages. So I think that we need to be careful. Whether it was a hurricane or not, I don't know. But it depends on when you count it.
Yeah, you just want to be accurate, but,
Right.
but if you say, if you go with tropical storm, you can say, well, imagine what would happen if there was a hurricane. It's
Yeah.
not just a tropical storm.
Well, it was a hurricane as it approached, and I'll just be careful with the words.
Actually, it was not. It was downgraded well before it approached. Don't say hurricane.
What's well
She's right.
before?
Hours before.
How many hours?
The eye fell apart 100 miles off land.
Well, when it made landfall,
No.
was it still a hurricane or was it a tropical storm?
It was Hurricane Katrina, how big, what was the magnitude of Katrina?
5.
No, when it hit land, it was a week 3. And it happens all the time when hurricanes reach land, the maximum winds are achieved aboard the land long before the eye hits
Let me give
and
you
well before, so
But that's the landfall,
Well, let
that's
me
the
give you a
phrase.
little background
Not
on
the
Tom.
eye.
Tom here was a Navy commander, and he was in charge of the submarine that went to Kauai after Hurricane Iniki and powered up the island. And so he has some experience with hurricanes.
Well, I did the federal government, I supervised a team that did the military's federal government report for Hurricane Katrina. So I've looked into this. It's conjecture on my part, but it's not
But he's
uninformed
educated.
conjecture.
He's educated.
conjecture.
Okay, but that's a good suggestion, is I'll scrub the words, because I don't want the words to get in the way of the message. And whether it's a tropical storm or hurricane
Well,
doesn't
if you had a
matter.
question about this.
Right.
Sustained.
We got a question over here.
This might be silly. I don't understand what exactly happened, because I was told, I'm on Wakamai, I'm on the bottom. I was told on Facebook that there was a gas leak. I contacted all the emergency places possible. We all know if you feel uncomfortable, you should leave. I was told by a friend the next day that what happened was a resident realized there was a gas leak, called a radio station. A radio station made an announcement, and then that's how Civil Defense found it. Is that
We
true?
don't know.
Yeah, so that's the thing, is I just would love to know the sequence of events.
We're gonna find out.
Yeah,
Because of the hurricane, it was really difficult.
Well, usually what happens is a lot of people talk to us after an incident and we can put it together. But in this particular one, Civil Defense has been so busy, I haven't wanted to bother Darryl and talk to him. And the second, he's got real issues right now he's got to solve. And the second problem is that PGV said they wouldn't give me any information until after they have finished their report to the Department of Health. So PGV is not giving information to the community.
And there was another
When
problem.
asked why they aren't giving information to the community now so that they can solve it, PGV told me that we need to concentrate on recovery from Hurricane Iselle, and we should not. So they told me I was out of line asking the question.
Yeah, how dare you,
You're
wanting information?
gonna be fine.
Meanwhile, is it shut
Well, there
down?
was one
We
other
don't
thing,
know.
and we didn't have phones or internet either, so we couldn't communicate with PGV, we couldn't communicate with anybody like from the area there, you know, and we couldn't get out of the area, so there was a complete breakdown of communication, and so and we haven't been able to put all the pieces together
Yeah, that's
quite
what it
yet,
seems like.
but we will.
Oh, yeah.
But the letter is hopefully written so that it discusses,
Every point, yeah.
well, most of what we've talked about may or may not have happened has nothing to do with the point of the letter, which is the plant shouldn't have been operating anyhow.
Right.
First place, yeah.
The plant should have been shut down before the hurricane ever
Got one
arrived.
behind you, and then we should probably get going back with the state.
So I'm Savan, and Nikki Conti is my wife, and she, yesterday at the corners of Leilani and Pohoiki Road at 1 o'clock, driving into town to get some internet service and do some work, smelled very, very strong gas.
Experience
And
every day.
at that point in time, there was no internet, no phone to make a report. And actually, we don't really even have civil
So
defense's
Siobhan,
number.
what we were doing is we're
Just gave-
gonna make video statements, or we wanna get all of this stuff documented and get us, please, a copy of that. And Carrie right here sitting next to me is shooting video testimonies right now,
I
so.
tried to get Nikki to come so she could do, but I am representing her, and that was her report.
Headache?
Just strong smell.
Did she get a headache?
She didn't tell me that she got a headache.
Okay.
She had a very,
But you are gonna get us that information in writing or on video.
exactly.
Yeah, and if you want to, just video yourself with the phone and send us a video.
Okay.
Do we have monitors?
No,
There are no monitors.
So
Not
right
yet.
now, we don't have any,
So there's no actual scientific documentation.
there's no monitors, all their monitors aren't working at this time,
I'm
there's
going
nothing.
to turn it over to you, Barb. What's your question?
Are there monitors?
There are, the official monitors used by the regulators to determine if PGV there are 4 of them. There's one that's the Department of Health monitor, which is up in Leilani Estates. There are 3 on the perimeter of PGV. Those monitors went out of commission when the power was lost, sometime around the time that the emergency releases. So there were no monitors. Hazmat, the hazardous material team, could not access the area. So they couldn't bring in the monitors that they tried to bring in. The community has no monitors yet. We're going to get some. Civil Defense is working with us to get some, but we don't have any yet. So the answer is that essentially there is no, and I'm not going to use the word scientific, I'm going to say instrument monitors that reveal hydrogen sulfide. One of the most sensitive ways of determining hydrogen sulfide in the world is smell. There's 2 problems with it. Each of us have a little different threshold. Bob's appears to be somewhere around 3 ppb. Mine's about 50 ppb. And so it depends on who it is.
But I wanna.
But it's still a very sensitive monitor.
No.
And there are people all over, people in this room and everywhere else that smell hydrogen
I want to
sulfide.
introduce Chris Bitkoff here in the back. He's a monitor, Bitkoff, I'm sorry. But there's no, he's a monitoring expert. He worked for the military at a hazardous weapons disposal site. And I believe if we can get the source data, we might be able to do some modeling. He's helping us design a monitoring system now that it's gonna take some time, but we're gonna ask to have the plant shut down until we get this done.
We need to understand, though, that relying on a handful of samplers, and they're not monitors, they're samplers, okay? It's a very important distinction. Because in any case, relying on a handful of point samplers is not a monitoring system, even if it's working, okay? There is no assurance that a handful of samplers is going to detect the cloud and provide a picture of what is coming out and going into the community. It just doesn't work that way. What we need is a dispersion model that runs continuously and gives us a picture supported by meteorology and the source terms. We know what's coming out of the pipe. Gives us a picture of what's happening, and that should be the basis for decision making about whether to evacuate and who is getting, the gas and that sort of stuff.
Chris's statement is what we're currently in discussion with EPA, the Department of Health, and the County Civil Defense. And interestingly, for everybody's information, the County Civil Defense and us are standing side by side saying that the samplers currently installed are insufficient.
Yes.
And Chris is the lead guy on that.
Okay, I have a question for you, though. You say that the PGV is developing a report of some
Yes,
sort
to
that
the
they're gonna
Department
send to
of
the
Health.
Department of Health. Are we going to get a copy of that?
Yes, I've been promised a copy. I've been given no preliminary information.
Soon, I hope, yeah.
He said
Not
2 days.
next year.
He said hopefully by
And
Thursday.
before the meeting's over, we're gonna be developing an action, and we haven't decided if we're going to the Department of Health yet, or if we're going to PGV. That's one of the things we're gonna discuss later, is, how can we apply pressure now to, get this stuff moving along.
Yeah, we've had fiddle farting around too long with the Department of Health. Something has to happen. And now is a very good time to put the pressure on, because
We're gonna come up with something.
Clarifying question. You have no monitors.
Right now,
0 monitors monitoring
samplers
hydrogen
either.
sulfide anywhere on this island. Clarifying.
I don't know
They
about
have
everywhere,
handheld, no, they
anywhere.
have handheld, hazmat has handheld, civil defense has deployable, but there's nothing deployed or accessible.
And there are all kinds of monitors at PGV.
Right.
They
That
don't
are
do what?
internal that they don't give
Well,
us the
no,
results on.
they are required by procedure to monitor in the community and report to the civil defense.
Okay, I attended a special meeting of the standardization committee at the county where they standardized the purchase of Jerome hydrogen sulfide monitors.
Right.
Did they never purchase any?
No, they've been purchased, but we haven't been trained
We
yet,
gotta
so
be
they have.
trained, and the guy.
So they're sitting on a shelf?
Well, but the guy was coming out to train us like 3 weeks ago, and he got stuck in Denver, a plane broke down, and he couldn't make it, so I had to reschedule the training, which is coming up pretty soon.
The monitors are available, the community volunteers that will have access to those monitors is available, the training has not occurred.
Okay.
So we don't have them available to us right now.
And is that a sampler or is that?
It's a sample.
Well, it's a
it is
sample.
a sample. Please understand. Let me
It's
say
not-
something about sampling and monitoring. Okay, you monitor with your eyes, okay, and with your ears. You sample by biting something. A piece of cake, you sample. You have to be at whatever you're sampling has to be in physical contact with you in order to sample. These Jeromes are samplers. The gas has to be at the Jerome in order for the Jerome to register the gas.
And it moves around.
It is a sampler.
Yeah, it disperses,
And it's a
right.
very important distinction, between sampling and monitoring. Yes, ma'am.
Does the EPA have a standard procedure for monitoring outgassing from geothermal anywhere?
They have regulations, yes, and the regulations have, it's a big complicated thing, and you're supposed to have.
I don't need the list, but they have.
Yes.
You don't have to reinvent the wheel.
No, we don't have to reinvent the
But it's
wheel.
not happening here.
We
that
have to read the law to the people who are not applying the law and make sure they follow.
What happens is EPA is responsible to the federal government for enforcement of the Clean Air Act of 1977. Is that the right year? Anyhow, it's an old act that says you have to keep the air clean. EPA has delegated the authority to regulate that to the State Department of Health. The discussion between the community, civil defense, the State Department of Health, and the EPA is we're contending that the State Department of Health is not competent in, it doesn't have the wherewithal, or competence. Our exact words is they don't have the wherewithal or competence to enforce the Clean Air Act. So we're currently in discussions with the EPA about that on a non-legal, at an administrative level.
Oh, very hoopy.
Yeah, which is, yeah. Well, it's important that it's administrative because after the administrative level is done, then you can start to consider legal things. But hopefully we'd never get there. Hopefully the EPA will say we agree with the community and the Department of Health has to get serious.
But this current outgassing during a disaster, in essence, would be at some point possibly legal recourse for demanding that the EPA act on this in a more...
There are many possibilities presented by this event,
If I may,
of which
I'm a little confused as to, we knew that a hurricane was coming and bearing down on the island.
Right.
We knew it was basically going to be hitting somewhere in lower Puna. Where it would be landfall, somewhere in Puna. Why was PGV ramped up to full capacity when the chances of trees breaking power lines?
You missed the letter.
You missed the letter, it's all in that letter.
Oh, okay.
Tom, there's another question here, another question.
And we've got one over here with Michael, he's been waiting too.
Thank you.
So just on that same point, so the EPA can say to geothermal, shut it down now.
Yes.
That's who we're ultimately trying to petition. The state's
Well,
saying either way.
I'm not going to go so far. I would be pleased if that's what they decided to do. That what we're saying right now is the State Department of Health is incompetent, and the EPA might say we're taking over regulation of the Clean Air Act from the State Department of Health, or the EPA might say shut it down, or the EPA might say State Department of Health, you have 30 days to give a new plan to us. Or they might say, community, we don't believe you,
Right.
and we want to stay with the State Department.
But we are gonna-
But those discussions are underway.
And we are gonna, Puna Pono Alliance is gonna ask that the plant be shut down until such time as a proper monitoring system is in place and an emergency response plan. So we are gonna ask.
Emergency shutdown.
We think they should shut the plant down until they actually get an emergency response plan that works and a monitoring system that works, yeah. And that's what we're gonna ask
At
for.
their budget.
We can't, I mean, EPA, it's gonna be a back and forth. We don't know what's gonna happen.
So Michael has a question, I'm sorry, Michael has a
Well,
question.
we were in the middle of doing testimony and we got into discussion. I'm eager to give my testimony.
You go ahead. What's your last name?
Michael Hill, and I documented most of what happened to me on my Facebook with all my friends, and I didn't hear about any of the symptoms or anything from anybody else. About 7:30 or so.
Where's your house, Michael?
We're a couple blocks from the bottom of Leilani, within the 1 mile zone. In a valley, I'd say. Kupu Street. And about 7:30 or thereabouts, we heard the jet engine go off. At first confused, thinking it was the hurricane maybe making some crazy noise, but then saw it was only directional in one place, the power plant. Went outside, looked, saw, heard, and then we smelled. We both got scratchy throats. A headache developed very quickly. Somewhere around 7:38, I called 911 to report the noise at the plant. They said abruptly, yes, we know about the Puna Geothermal plant. Bye, click. Nothing more I could say to them. They hung up on me. And I mean, I was trying to be understanding because it's the middle of, the storm or whatever. So I let it be. I guess they'll let us know something, right? So at that time we still had some connection. We're watching Facebook and such, and other people telling that there's a gas leak already on Facebook, not from the mayor. And then I called 911 again. Well, I called Puna Geothermal numbers, the ones that I had, what I thought was the emergency line, and it just went to phone mail. So I hung up and then called another number. Nothing. That was between 7:30 and 8. Somewhere around after 8, I called 911 again to ask directly, because of the smell and the feelings we were having, if we should evacuate directly. And they asked somebody else, and they said, no, at this time, we're not saying to evacuate. Soon after that, I saw a Facebook message that somebody had linked from somebody else, from the mayor, saying that if you're feeling effects, that you should evacuate. So we started getting our people together in the house, 4 of us at the time, the dog and the cat, piled into the car and tried to drive out of Leilani, where we found all the roads were blocked, including blocking the fire department in Leilani, at least 2 trucks. And they said, you can try and go this way or that way. So I tried to go this way, and the storm is starting to bear down. No luck. We drive by the fire department again, and I had explained to them that we're trying to evacuate due to this smell, and they said to evacuate if we're feeling effects, we're feeling effects. They said, right now you're not going to be able to get out. Best thing to do is go back to your house, close the doors, stay inside and windows. Right now, he also said something after like being on the radio or something, that it's testing 1 part per million and it's dangerous at 2 part per million. I don't know where he got that, but it seemed like it was one of the fire department that was in Leilani at the
Well,
at around 8.
1 part per million is 1,000 parts per billion.
Well,
And the violation is 25 parts per billion.
I'm repeating what he said.
No, I just telling you, I believe it, and I think it was at least 1 part per billion. And the actual evacuation level is 1 part per million. That triggers an evacuation. That's what
Well, that's what he said to me on the street at the corner of Leilani and whatever, where the tree was down. That it was 1 part per million and it's not dangerous until it's 2 parts per billion. Or million. Billion, he said, million.
And he had a sampler. I just want to say, because 10 feet that way, it could have been 15.
Well, I don't know if he got it from because
yeah.
it seemed like he might have got it from a radio, but I
Still,
didn't know
still
what was
wherever
going
they took that sample from, 10 feet here or 10 feet there, could easily have been 10 times higher.
on. Now, at the time, I'm panicking, a little panicky. I'm also feeling groggy and clouded in the head. So I head back home and, I'm telling everybody, look, you just got to stay inside. There's nothing we can do. So we all go back inside. We make up a bed in the closet, walk-in closet. I'm not even finished. I'm like not even finished making the bed and I'm out.
You passed out?
Out.
That's the second person that passed out.
I did too.
I was out for 12 hours, almost 12 hours.
Oh my goodness. Boy.
She tried to wake me up with the light and shaking me. The middle of the storm is going on. I like to watch storms. I'm a light sleeper when it's stormy out. I usually sleep 6 hours a night.
Believe us now?
I'm pissed. I'm scared and I'm pissed. I went to, woke up the next day, It took me about half an hour, 45 minutes to get ungroggy. I was still groggy most of the day. Basically, that day we couldn't get out.
So we got to get a doctor. We need a doctor.
So how many hours you were out straight?
I'm going to go make some.
11 hours.
12.
Over 11 hours.
Are you a doctor?
I went to the doctor. I went to the urgent care on Saturday. Let me finish the timeline of the story. So that day, trying to get clear-headed, scratchy throat, headache through the day, going on and off. Late into the night, Leilani is when Leilani opened up so that you could actually go out of Leilani and have access to internet and phone and such. So we actually got out that, somewhere in that day to post some other things online and such. The next day, I think it was, right, where I got the tingly feeling. I think it was the next day where I felt tingling in my arms, here and here. Not quite numbness, but just like enough that it never felt it before. So I decided to go to the urgent care. I went to the urgent care, and he said there's nothing that they can do, nothing to test for, nothing that he can do there, that you need to go to the emergency room. So I went to the emergency room where they ran all the tests and basically gave me oxygen first and then ran all the tests. And then basically said, the oxygen count is good, there's no treatment for this type of poisoning.
What poisoning did they say you had?
They can't say that you had anything because there's no way to test it. There's no way to test it, so they can't, basically they said there's no treatment for this type of thing and they can't test for it either. So I left telling me to go get eye drops. That's one of the other things, is there's crud, feeling like there's crud in my eye still today. This eye mostly like there's a conjunctivitis in there. And then the next day, I went to my doctor's because I was sitting over at the Black Rock there and having a breakfast and just starting to, I went into a sweat. Now, all the times that I went to the doctor, each time, the 3 times, I had a low-grade fever. And usually my temperature is lower than normal, most people. So I had a low-grade fever for normal people. Went to the doctor this time and they said there's basically nothing they could do. They don't have any, they were gonna test me for the flu to just make sure of that, but they didn't have any flu devices on hand. The first doctor I went to on a note did test for strep just to make sure to rule that out, no strep. So that's my story. I still have the conjunctivitis in my eye and had a heat sweat today and felt the fever again.
I just like to add something. It's been proposed and done in the past. If you soak a towel in sodium bicarbonate, baking soda, that it may have abated some. I'd like to see some data on that, but I know that bases do break down H2S. So that might help. Of course, it's not a real good solution, obviously, but if there's nothing else, it might be worth trying.
You put that at your door?
I'll mention one other thing.
Over your nose.
You make a
Oh,
solution
you do a
and
treatment.
you breathe through a towel with that wet.
I'll mention one other thing just to kind of back up. When she was trying to wake me up, I guess she checked on me a couple of times a night, and one of the times she thought I looked dead because my eyes were puffy and red. And just sleeping and not so hard, I guess. And then some of the days I've had a very splotchy face.
I just talked to
I
Civil
guess I have it
Defense.
right now, I don't know.
I just talked to Civil Defense. They're gonna set up some kind of emergency medical center out here tomorrow. So everybody can go to the doctor there and we can kind of get all that information in one place. If anybody that wants to. So as soon as I get that information, I'll send it out.
I just wanted to say, because we live on Hinalo, I don't know if you're in here when I was telling my husband, but he slept today until 1. That's totally not like him. He's been having the sweats. He had poopy eyes that I took his picture, because I was like, this never happens to him. Thick green goop. You know, and I just remembered all the stories from 2 years ago, and I'm watching it happen in my house. And I'm watching everything unfold like we've been so afraid about. So anyway, I just want to say it was the same symptoms. He didn't crash out like that, but he's been very sleepy since. My kids are okay. They were in the house though, we never let them out, and it was my husband and I that went on the lanai.
We got Dr. Ninu and then Gail.
Oh, hey, I'm the medical doctor, my name is Nina Court.
Welcome.
Thank you.
I'm Tom Travis.
Oh, hey, how you doing? I kind of specialize in mitochondrial function. Hydrogen sulfide is a mitochondrial toxin. It's very similar to cyanide, which everybody's heard about. I'm sorry if you need me to talk about it, but hydrogen sulfide is very similar to cyanide as a poison. It's a mitochondrial poison. Now, there's a couple different things that happen when you're exposed to a gas. One is your skin and your eyes and your lungs, everything that's directly exposed to the gas gets irritated, which could give you conjunctivitis or splotchy skin. And then the other thing that happens is your brain is affected because you breathe it in, and the olfactory nerve goes directly into the brain. There's no blood-brain barrier there. And hydrogen sulfide is very much a brain poison and a nerve poison. So to be getting numbness, tingling are very typical symptoms of that, as well as being extremely sleepy.
Would you give Daryl at Civil Defense, head of Civil Defense, a call and talk to him about this emergency center tomorrow?
Right, I will. You just got to give me the number.
I will.
But there's a couple more important things to say. So being sleepy is a neurologic symptom. Being numb and tingling is a neurologic symptom. Not being able to think straight or get your words out exactly clearly, those are all neurologic symptoms. In a really high dose, of course, just like cyanide, hydrogen sulfide kills you rapidly. In lower doses, it causes brain damage, which may or may not be reversible. The mitochondrial poisoning aspect of it affects your entire body because there's mitochondria in every cell of your body except your red blood cells. So the doctors that you saw gave you misinformation because most doctors don't even know how hydrogen sulfide works, and they certainly don't know how to test for the poisoning. You need to test mitochondrial function. It's a urine test, believe it or not, and they can also check your lactate level in your blood. And they should have sent urinary organic acids immediately as soon as you were exposed and symptomatic. They should have also sent your blood lactate levels. I'm sure those are not the tests that they got in the ER because I know the standard test that they would send. And so they didn't test you for what they needed to test, which is mitochondrial function. In addition, there are treatments, and the treatments vary depending not only on the symptoms, but on which part of the mitochondria is affected. And the tests can show you that. Now, if people were to get tested tomorrow, like if Civil Defense or someone is willing to pay for this, or if people are insured, and anyone who's insured, their insurance should cover it because you've been exposed. But if you're not insured and you're not covered, I would hope that...
No, don't worry about that. We'll get that thing done.
Anyway, so these tests could be done tomorrow. The urine ones have to be first morning urine, and you should be not exactly dehydrated, but
Can you
should
talk
not-
louder? I'm sorry, it's just hard over the rain.
The rain is, yeah.
The urine tests have to be your first morning urine. Okay, so because that's the point when your organic acids are most concentrated. And you shouldn't drink if you're going to do this tomorrow morning, assuming that they will do this. Whatever day you do it, you shouldn't drink much fluid in 8 hours before you go to bed. And then you collect your first morning urine when you're just a little dehydrated because you haven't been putting much fluid in. And that concentrates the urinary organic acids and allows you to see the levels and the ratios much better. Certain of those acids will be way out of whack with your mitochondria or malfunction. And lactate is something that goes up in your blood when your mitochondria don't function. So there's definitely tests. I don't know whether a week after an exposure, if you're still symptomatic, you probably still would have abnormalities. But if urine is collected a week after the event and you see abnormalities, it can be assumed that right up at the exposure, that the levels were much, much higher. Recovering from mitochondrial insults takes time for some people, but there are things that can be done to make it better. And I can't really just say, oh sure, I'll see anybody anytime, but maybe I can work out a way to have people come and visit me where I work, and I may have, that's a step. But you could have access to my knowledge, which you've got your test results.
Can I ask a question? Since we're still having the person, people saying that there's continuous venting, what would you suggest if anybody smells it, how they can protect themselves? Like you were saying, put wet towels baking soda. Would you suggest that?
I actually don't know the answer as to whether or not making your body more alkaline would protect you, but it's probably not a bad idea. It's because it's mitochondria. So that's certainly not bad. There's a whole lot of different things you can do to improve mitochondrial function. Some of them are just supplements. One thing that's important, believe it or not, is don't eat any carbohydrates. That sounds totally crazy, right? You should completely act like you're on the Atkins diet for a couple of weeks after. Don't start this tonight if you're going to get tested tomorrow. But what happens is the mitochondria, the part that breaks down, is the part that metabolizes sugar. And so I actually had a mitochondrial failure as a result of a toxic insult. Mine was anesthesia. And that's how I fell into this whole area of medicine. And so what I did was I actually cured myself by going on a ketogenic diet for a few months. And so if you deprive yourself of sugars, what will happen is that part of the mitochondria that needs to process the sugar no longer has to function. And then your body's given a chance to heal. So once you get your samples done, I'd recommend that you stop eating all carbs, at least briefly, and eat, proteins, fats, and the only carbs you should have should be vegetables. Fruits have too much fructose, more like ready sugar in them.
If they're gonna turn in a sample of first morning urine, it probably should be refrigerated, or it may spew, right?
Yeah, and I'm also not sure whether or not, the lab that I use, there's like some kind of preservative in the tube, but I've also, for people who, the lab I use is kind of extensive and it doesn't accept insurance, but there's another lab, Quest Lab, which is a mainland thing, which if you submit your samples to Clinical Lab of Hawaii, they send it to Quest on the mainland. Those people just take the urine in a regular urine cup as if you had a urine infection and you go pee in the cup. So I think that it doesn't necessarily have to be refrigerated if it's going to be turned in soon, but it won't hurt you to refrigerate it. There's not going to be, you should collect it in a clean, non-soapy glass container, not plastic and not metal. And you should collect your whole first morning urine, and then when you bring it to the lab or wherever it is that they're putting it into the sample to be sent off, swirl the jar before you pour out the amount that they're going to actually send off for sampling.
Do we have any idea how this is happening, what lab this is, or where we're taking our
Oh,
feed?
well, no, I had no clue. I didn't even know that they were going to do that.
Well, I just
Medical.
talked to Civil Defense, and he's working with Department of Health right now. I actually don't have much confidence in Department of Health will do a good job, so I was gonna ask Nina if she could suggest somebody, and if she can and they're available, I'll make sure that person is there at the medical station. I'll insist that we have somebody that actually
But we can
understands it.
collect our sample and then bring it to them later in the day, correct?
Right, but the earlier is the better. Now,
Sure,
there's
sure.
a big problem living in Hawaii, getting samples appropriately processed and sent to the mainland in the correct way so that they don't lose all potency. When I use the more expensive private lab, they give you a FedEx thing and you overnight it to the mainland. I don't have any of those kits now, I wish I did, but we could, if we send away for them, it's gonna take a few days to
Where is your
get them.
practice?
I don't have my own practice right now, I'm only practicing at the Waimea Urgent Care.
Okay.
Yeah.
I see Dr. Sally Boyd here in Pahoa, and I actually saw her earlier today, that's another story. But I know she uses a lot of, not clinical labs type,
Right.
She
may have some kits for urinary organic acids.
And so that would be the specific test for testing the
That's what
mitochondria
you're
and damage.
That and the blood lactate.
Just a second, everyone. I'm sorry, and I will make the announcement now because I don't want to be mysterious, but Dr. Kilburn passed away this weekend. So one of our leading luminaries and one of the people whose hands and arms have been around the community helping us for years is no longer with us, so for what it's worth. I think it's very important at this point with the number that probably the most important thing in my opinion is to get as many stories as we can. And so I would like to solicit other people that have stories, and we'll try to stay out of the discussion of what we're going to do politically and stuff, and hold that off until we get the stories collected. Is that acceptable with everyone? Does that sound okay to you, Paul?
Yeah, that sounds good. I just have one suggestion, and that is since Barb is here, for those that want to send an email.
I agree, Paul.
Let's give them that in case they don't get it.
Barb, we need a place for everybody to send written or video testimony so that we can have one storage place for it.
You mean by email?
It can either be by email or to the website, but having me try to discuss how to do that is there's things I can do, but that's way out of my
So
strength.
Barb, I was just thinking we could use punapono@gmail.com, and in the subject, we could say the H2S exposure or H2S testimony. And then people put as many facts as they can, and then contact information on there. And if you send it to there, then we'll have a way to pull it all together if you can't testify today.
So it's punapono@gmail.com?
That's right.
All one word, Puna Pono?
Yeah.
And Paul, wasn't there a link on punapono.com for the health form that we used to use to, for people to report?
Yeah, I don't know what the status of that is. Does anybody know?
No, I don't.
Can I make a suggestion?
You may.
Most videos are gonna be too large to email, so that's a really bad idea.
So
Beyond that, I am your archivist, and I'm sitting right here in the middle of you, so
That's
I
great,
am
but some-
demanding to be recognized.
But some people are not here.
And I can help with this. So, we also have, which has not been used at all for the last 2 years plus, a Facebook page called Save Poiki, Keep Puna Clean and Green. Please post things there, please communicate there. And we also have a secret private group on Facebook, which you need to know one of us to get into, but almost everybody in here is in it. So let's use that too, because I also learned about the blowout on Facebook. And then I checked Twitter. So, and it still worked for a lot of people, but a lot of people can record a video on their phone and upload it directly to Facebook. And then you get over the email problem and the technical problem and people not knowing how to do that, and then download them and archive them somewhere. So let's
Want to send an email. I'm not saying send a video. I'm saying send an email with your contact information and the salient facts and details. And if you send it to Barb, then at least we have it all in one place and we can follow up.
And Barb can
if you
send
want to
instructions.
do
In the
a
meantime,
Facebook
why don't we
page,
finish
that's
the
great.
testimonies that are
Right.
here? And because we got a lot of things to go on, so we should probably try to.
Okay, is there anybody that doesn't know one way to do the archives? I've heard two, which is one is to post the videos on Save Pohiki, Keep Puna Clean and Green. And the second is you can email anything that's emailable.
No, clarify. You have to post them in the secret group. You can, because you're an admin on it, and you're an admin, and you're an admin, but I'm and Kat are the only ones that actually post there. But there is a secret group that you can upload videos
Well,
to.
that won't help us. We need a place where we.
Yes, it will help you. That is the same thing. I'm just redirecting you from the public
Okay,
page
excuse me, but
to the private
want,
group.
Puna Pono Alliance wants this stuff, we want to gather it ourselves. You can post it anywhere you want, but please make sure you get it to us, please. To me personally.
And they won't check there, so never mind.
Okay, I
know.
think
You know
Barb.
what I'm talking about, right?
Barb,
Yeah.
I work with Carrie and get me some succinct guidance that even a person like me can understand, who's a social media midget. And so I know how to get that video and
I think the two things are, if you're going to do it by email, just send it to punapono@gmail.com.
Okay.
As much information as you can, you know, who, what, when, yet.
How about people that do videos?
And anyone that does videos, I think putting them on Facebook is probably the best place, once that.
Okay,
But we want the videos.
you work with Carrie and come up with simple directions so everybody can do it.
I have 3 terabytes of video for you that I've been trying to give you for 2 years, so I'm happy to hand that
Well,
over.
that's not, I want the video of what happened to these people here,
not be in
not
charge
3
of it.
years ago.
Yeah, okay, we have plenty of time.
If they upload the video to like YouTube and send the email,
We
the
can
link
download
to Puna Pono, that'll
Yeah,
be
that's
one way,
fine, we
right?
just need to collect it in
Right,
one.
but that's another way, you can upload it to YouTube, send the link to Puna Pono
That's
Gmail.
fine, that's fine.
That's a
I
good
just
way
want
to
to
do it.
make sure that we have it.
That's great, Steve, thank you. Okay, Mike, thank you. Who's next?
I guess I'll go.
And your name?
My name is Sophia, last name is Wilt. I live on Makamai Street within the 1 mile radius. And I was in my home and I remember the power went out sometime between 3 and 4. And I remember hearing that jet engine through the forest sound early on, very, very early on, well before dark, for off and on for hours. Obviously we lost power, and as the evening progressed, I remember starting to really not feel very well and not understanding why, and not really thinking too much about it. I was sent a message on Facebook that there was a gas leak, and it was dark, and that's when things started to get really creepy. And I called the police department immediately, and they gave me little information. Fire department same, civil defense same. Basically, if you're uncomfortable, you should go. And I thought, where am I gonna go? I can't even probably get down out my street. So I was really freaked out. I was by myself. I had my renter in the Ohana, and I went and notified him. He also was having respiratory symptoms, eye redness, not feeling well. And like so many other people, had no cell phone service, no power, no radio, no nothing, and had no means of being contacted. I don't remember when, but shortly thereafter on Facebook, I noticed that the leak had been contained. However, I continued to hear that sound, that creepy jumbo jet through the jungle sound, off and on for a while. And then I passed out. I was laying, and I am a terrible sleeper. I have chronic insomnia. And there was a hurricane hitting, and I wanted to be awake in case there were any damages in my house. And I was laying on my sofa, and I just passed out for hours.
Were you there?
No, I was by myself. So I passed out for hours. I woke up, and I was actually, it was like out of it. I mean, I knew things were bad, and I just like fumbled into my bedroom and passed out for probably 6 or 7 more hours. I woke up in the morning and felt like crap. Like I had been partying, for days and days, which I had not been. And I felt really uncomfortable being not only at my house, but also in that zone. And I've been trying to spend as little time there as possible because I'm so uncomfortable. You and I recently connected, and you recommended that I go to my doctor, which I did today. And I had been in to see her a week prior for just a regular kind of routine, helping me with something, and I was doing great, and I looked amazing, and I felt really strong, and I walked in and she went, "Oh my God, you look like shit." And I said, "Yeah, I've been like puffy and red, and my throat hurts, and I've been like brain foggy." And she did some listening with the stethoscope into my chest, and she found a patch of fluid and mucus. And she gave me a bunch of recommendations for things to do, but she said she was really concerned, considering what good health she had just seen me in a week ago, and how I look and feel now. Yeah, that's mostly it. And also, for whatever it's worth, I had applied for the relocation program, and they told me there was no money and that they couldn't help me. And you better bet I'm going to follow up and get on their asses.
Well, I know Michael has, and Danny Steiner passed out, he's on the list. A lot of the people that were most affected have been on that list. They spent the money for toilets and bus stops and stuff like that.
I got approved. They offered me $80,000 less than what I owe.
Yeah. I ended up, I was on that list years ago, and I ended up selling my house for $75,000. I had $225 in it because I just wanted out, and I got tired of it.
Is there anybody talking about doing something, some sort of civil suit, taking action that way? I mean, going through all these, we should talk. Yeah, an injunction of some sort. I mean, I'm not sure if I get a good attorney because that's what they do, but this is bullshit. Excuse my language.
I'm gonna sue everybody.
Yeah.
You have 2 years. We're gonna, you should get your ducks in an order, get all your information. That's what we're doing. We need to have as much documentation, because you're gonna need all that for
everything we do administratively makes it more powerful when we decide to go that direction. But I have to say frankly that this event is a bit of a game changer for me.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I definitely was always kind of like, well, they're not transparent, they're not accountable, but things have not been that bad. When I was trapped in my house and I couldn't leave, and I could feel, I was like,
well, the thing that is a game changer for me is all of this is unnecessary because the plant should have been shut down.
Sure.
And the fact that it wasn't shut down, and why not?
Well,
it's negligent. I don't know if it's incompetence or
Even if it wasn't shut down, where was the backup plan? I mean, we live in an area that only within the last 10 years has power. So where's the backup plan? When the power goes down,
You're making an assumption that the power that we use comes from the geothermal plant.
but what I'm saying is in an emergency situation, every hospital in the world has, well, not the world, has a backup.
Right.
That's not, every day.
And you're asking, what is the county's backup plan?
Why doesn't PGV have?
Well, it isn't
Because
PGV, in this case, it's Helco that needs the backup.
Well, no, for the monitoring, it's PGV. And
Oh, yeah.
I'm saying, I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
there's somebody.
Well, let's
I thought we were doing stories. And I
Yeah,
like
let's do story, because the answer to the question is there's been great resistance to come up with a community emergency response plan for PGV for about 20 years.
And the fact that, I mean, they've known for 20 years they need backup power for those monitors. And civil defense call them up and ask them why they don't have any monitors, and they tell the head of civil defense, well, we don't have a generator. You know, here's a multi-million-dollar corporation. They said they could not, and civil defense said, well, I'll loan you a generator if you'll start your monitors, and they still haven't started the monitors.
Okay, and more stories, yes, sir.
My name is George Duvris, D-O-U-V-R-I-S, along with my wife, my daughter, my son, his wife, and 2 visitors from New Zealand. We were in our house, which is about a mile from geothermal on what's called officially Government Road. We had no phone or internet access to know that anything specific was going on at geothermal. We heard what sounded like this horrendous aircraft noise, maybe around 7, 8 o'clock, I'm not sure. And without having any kind of idea of anything with geothermal, we all started feeling nauseous, smelling some kind of acrid gas. I got very lethargic from being very in tune to staying up for the hurricane. I was just very sleepy. All of us, I think, were experiencing a very tired, headache, kind of symptoms similar to what I've heard other people experience, but we acknowledged it before we had heard any of these stories. Right when I thought I'd be in peak form to help with the hurricane, because we were worried about our windows breaking or the roof coming off, I told my wife Stephanie that I had to go to bed. For some reason I was just feeling I had to sleep.
What time were you talking about?
Probably around midnight, a little bit after, maybe say 12:30, closer to 1 a.m. We were anticipating another kick from the hurricane, but I said, you better handle it, honey, I can't do it. Let me rest for about 10 minutes. I woke up the next morning, still feeling tired. Everybody was complaining about headaches.
Sore throat problems.
She still has a sore throat.
Lethargic, no energy.
We're all lethargic. We're all having this brain fog. Another concern I've got is, starting from that morning, I've got these prickly feelings all through my abdomen. They feel like little nerve pains. I don't know what they are. I don't know if I can associate them with what happened, but this is not like me, and I'm concerned what this is. I'd like to go check this out. So that's my story. I represent 7 people. They can make their own testimony if they like. But that's all I can say. I'm still ready to go to sleep. I feel like I'm ready to fall asleep anytime like that.
My name's Nicolette Dubras, and I second what he said. All that's true. Sore throats, hard to swallow. And I spent one night away, and it got better. When I came back the next day, it started up again.
And we couldn't get out of our driveway either. You know, I'm Stephanie Dubras, my family. We were the same way. I managed to stay up because, I was, just too nervous, but everybody else went to sleep. They were just totally out. I couldn't wake them up, when it started really coming at about 2 o'clock. And I just stayed up all night. But the next day I said, okay, you guys take over. It was like 6 o'clock, and I kind of got them up, and I slept until about 2 o'clock. And I was just out, after that. And we did hear the sounds. And it was kind of amazing because we didn't have internet reception or telephone. And out of our daughter-in-law's cell phone, she got a text message from someone out in Kalapana saying, you got to evacuate and it just kind of came in. It was the only message we ever got to get out. And we said, can't.
Impossible.
It's
There's
impossible.
no way to evacuate. No way to get
There was
out
a
of the
road, we
driveway.
couldn't even get out of our driveway, it took us 2 days to get out. And I said, I'm not gonna go anywhere, because I heard those trees going, sounded like firecrackers. I'm sure you all heard it.
Yeah.
So, you know, we live about a mile and a half or so up on the ridge. You know, so we could see everything down below and hear everything.
Before-
And I know, we spoke yesterday when we just kind of took a walk around to see what was happening. And another gentleman, he heard it, he tried to evacuate with his
That was
family
Leilani.
in Leilani on that first street coming up Leilani. He had his cars ready, he had his family ready to go, and
They were all passed
and they were
out.
all passed out, and they couldn't even get out.
What were their names?
That I never met, but I know where they live. I can go back and
Yeah,
tell
we can
them
go back.
to come in to this meeting and maybe tell their neighbors, because he said he's like right where the slope goes down there, you know, before it comes up to to that road. And he heard it go off, and he was ready, prepared. But when he got in his cars and ready to go, the trees had already fallen, and he couldn't get out, so he had to stay in his house. So I'm not sure how that. But there's no way of getting out. I mean, we're all stuck.
Is there anybody who's given testimony so far that would be reticent to having it used by other people?
What?
Used by other people.
Used by other people. If this is posted on Facebook, just a second, this is Daryl. Hello, Daryl.
Nice tune.
I know somebody who uses that tune for his ex-wife.
After your
Yeah,
testimony, I think I need to amend mine. I was able to stay up, but at 1 o'clock I crashed.
I think what he's asking is everybody's public with their story, right?
And I've been out of it for about 2 days.
Yeah, tired, and I'm not like.
I got you. We'll edit that together for you.
So guys, while we're waiting, is there someone else that would like to give their testimony so we can continue to move forward? Yeah, please.
My name is Megan Funk. Mike is my boyfriend. We live together on Hokupu Street. And so it was like 7:30, maybe a little bit before, and we were just kind of hanging out, waiting for the storm, kind of excited but anxious at the same time. And so all of a sudden we just hear this like jet engine noise, and we're like, I thought it was the storm. I was like, whoa, like, because I'd never been in a hurricane before, and I was like, wow, that's pretty intense, like, what's gonna happen? But then we go and look out, we open the door and look out the door, and the wind wasn't blowing through the trees, so it was just a noise. And he's like, I actually have it on camera because I started recording it because it was just so crazy. In our conversation, I'm like, oh, like, what is that? I never heard wind like that. He's like, I think it might be the geothermal plant. And I'm like, why would it be that? And like, I got super nervous all of a sudden. And so then he calls the 2 numbers for the geothermal plant. Nobody answers. He calls 911. They don't give him any information. They just say, yeah, we know about the geothermal. Hang up. So we're like, okay, like kind of confused. Like, well, I guess he would have told us to evacuate if it was a big deal. So we were concerned, but not super worried yet. We're just like more perplexed by the noise. And soon after, I started feeling bad. Like headache came on, my throat got scratchy. I became really just like weird feeling. I don't really know how to describe it. And so I think it was like half hour later, he called the cops again to try and get more information. And they said, oh, it's okay, it's just like a steam release. So Mike told me that, and I'm like, oh, okay, it's just steam, like I don't have to worry. And so like I went and laid down, it's like.
Just a second, I need a quick one. The Civil Defense Director is called, he's with the mayor. They want to send out an ambulance to take symptoms from the people that have been affected so that it's documented. And I'm going to tell them okay unless somebody has some objections.
Right now?
Right now. It's on the way.
Hoorah.
That's Daryl.
I called the lawyer to talk to him, and he said, document everything like we talked about, and make sure you get any witnesses, names of witnesses and stuff like that. those are gonna be the things you're gonna do.
Yes. Trustees got it all.
And also, maybe if you know anybody who did have symptoms, if you can maybe call them and tell them to come on over here so they can.
Oh, and he said one more thing, make sure that not only do you see the civil defense doctor or Department of Health doctor, go to your family doctor. It's like making a police report. You have to go see the doctor if you had symptoms, please.
So, I'm sorry, when, this is happening tomorrow, the civil defense?
There's an ambulance on its way right now, so we'll get more information.
No, they're just gonna take symptoms. They're just
Well,
gonna
but they're
take.
coming right now, and when they
But
get
they won't
here,
test for the mitochondria and all
make sure
that.
you insist that they have a safe, I mean, we gotta insist that they set up a place out here for everybody to go.
We just got one more and then we can go into that. Yeah, right here. Just let her finish right here.
Okay, so they said it was a steam release, and that made me feel more relaxed and comfortable. Because when they say steam, I assume it was steam. You know?
Emergency steam release.
Yeah, so I wasn't too worried. And then, but I still started I felt worse, and I was like, okay, I know it's not in my head. I'm not feeling good. And so I checked my Facebook, and we see the message from Billy Canoy saying to evacuate if you're experiencing discomfort, and we definitely were. And then I went outside, and it stunk like a rotten egg, and I was like, yeah, let's get out of here. And so we loaded up all our stuff and just left, and we got about a mile until, that was as far as we could go because the trees are blocking the road. And we saw maybe 4 or 5 other cars on the street of people trying to leave. And there was one guy who was following us because we were trying to find a way out, and we just couldn't, so we all went back to our homes. So we went back, and like he said, we got into our walk-in closet for a while. He just, like he said, he passed out, like he was out, which is really weird for him. And I couldn't sleep at all that night. I just kept getting up to drink water. I was super, super thirsty, and I had a really, really fast heart rate, and I felt like I couldn't take a full breath all the way, and I took like valerian root, which usually calms me down, and it helps me sleep really well. I didn't do anything. I just felt terrible, and my eyes were burning. After a few hours, the smell went away. But yeah, I couldn't sleep. The next morning I I get up. It's like 6 a.m. and I'm just sort of strolling on the street to try and survey the damage, and I felt like I was gonna pass out just from walking. Like, it was really scary. I've never felt like I was gonna die before. I thought I was going to die, like laying there. Like, it sucked, and I'm super pissed.
I hear that.
Yeah. Very scary, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And unnecessary.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Tom?
Anybody else? Okay, an ambulance is coming. When Bob left the meeting, well, I'll let him say what he did, but
I called civil defense and told them they needed to do something right now.
And Daryl apparently went in and talked to the mayor, and they're sending an ambulance to document the symptoms you have, and that if either they or you feel that you need to go somewhere now, they will get you there, to a hospital or care. Ninu, I mentioned that you're here, and I mentioned that one of the things that was most distressing about the meeting was lack of medical understanding in the community of how to deal with possible exposure to H2S. And I said that if I could talk you into it, they said it would be all right if you were with a medical technician so that you could be sure that they're framing the issues appropriately so that we can go from here.
Framing the issues of
The issues, not what the symptoms are, but where they need to go. What needs to be done, because the medical, if a doctor isn't coming, so if the doctors are having trouble knowing what to do, I can assure the medical technicians are going to say, this is fine, and I think it would be appropriate for you to tell them, no, they need to be tested for this, and this, and get them to write that down in that medical term.
I'm writing down a list of tests that are needed.
Okay, thank you very much, Nina.
One thing I wanted to point out is that, don't they recommend in a hurricane, that you're supposed to at least crack something so that the pressure doesn't build up?
I don't know the answer, but I do know that if I were smelling a noxious gas and had nowhere to go, it has to be one of the most terrifying experiences I can imagine. Probably drowning is a little worse, but they're related to each other because it would really be a terrifying experience. And my heart goes out to those people that experienced it. I'm very sorry.
And also to know that you have people, friends, neighbors, people you love that are right at the,
They had no
close to the
idea.
plant, and you
No
can't
idea.
notice that, notify them, or you can't get them out, and you're just like waiting. I mean, it's horrible.
Well, and I was so fearful something would break the window, and then what?
Oh,
And I'm in a
gosh.
hurricane, and the air can get in, and, I've told a lot of people about it, and I've been made fun of, but I seriously was so worried about my family's life and my babies, and I have never felt anything like that, and I can't get over it. I'm shaken. And hearing all this is just compounding my fear because, I didn't know if it was just stress from the hurricane or what it was, but anyway.
Dr. Quirk referred to this, but some of the damage done by hydrogen sulfide is not reversible without medical intervention. So I think it's absolutely essential that all of you go to a personal doctor and start the process to see if you can get to an expert that knows how to deal with it. Because the damage is not all reversible.
I was a passed out first, just to deal with
Corey right here, guys.
Oh, no, I was just saying, how are people who are passed out supposed to deal with a hurricane? I'm just totally shocked by what I'm hearing.
I know.
I'm not trying to put the political cart before the horse. On the level of accountability, the level of command, who can shut this plant down because it's not safe? Can the health department, the mayor, the governor?
Yes,
Who?
those three can.
Now, the governor said, get over it, embrace geothermal.
Right.
And he's on his way out, I believe.
Well, he said, get over it, embrace geothermal. If you don't like what I'm saying, elect somebody else.
We did. Kenoi can do it too.
I think so. I'm not a legal expert, but the permitting authorities are the county and the county and the state. So my assumption is that if you require a county permit to operate, then you also have the authority to shut down. I know the EPA can shut them down. I'm sure the state can shut them down. I think the mayor can shut them down. And maybe they'll decide that they're not doing quite right and shut themselves down. That's a possibility.
So if mayor, governor, and health department are a little bit lethargic or don't want to do anything, can the EPA come in and say?
Yes.
And we're going to call Asia Yearly tomorrow and tell her we have a medical emergency and ask for the Center for Disease Controls to be sent out.
I think the mayor can shut it down.
I think you can.
Well, I'll tell you, if they don't, we'll get 1,000 people. And we'll
Now, I'm going to touch on this meeting. This meeting hasn't quite been what I expected, but there were some actions that we wanted to take, and one action we want to take is to get that letter out, hopefully tomorrow, that I read.
Those that didn't get to hear it, you just got a letter that's going out about everything we're talking about.
Yeah, the second, pardon
Are you
me?
going to post it on the Facebook page? Are you going to post it on where can we all find the letter?
Hopefully, if it works like I hope, hopefully one of the papers will pick it up.
Yeah, sure.
So hopefully you'll be able to read it on one of the papers.
Carrie, can we get a copy of this video? Because I think we should send this video to the TV stations as well.
The video is 1 hour and 23 minutes long already. They won't run it.
Just cut.
It has to be cut up.
Can you do your magic?
They won't. They won't. But yes, we can get it out, and I can probably get it on Big Island Video News almost immediately.
Well, get it to me too, if you wouldn't mind, please.
Okay, the next thing is that we're going to have a community meeting in which we ask Helco the mayor, the governor, and the PGV to come and explain to us what happened to the community. So they stand in front of us and tell us what happened, much as we did on the March 13th incident. The third thing is, and this is the one that has the least planning, is some of us feel that we did a march on Helco a while back in which we marched to Hilo, because probably not a good idea to march that far again. Many of us were injured for months. But
The 1-year anniversary is next week, you know. It is. I mean, honestly, I was gonna mention, so.
But we think that a similar community educational statement, don't call it a protest, we call it a demonstration where we stand up and say exactly what the community wants and expects without any rancor and without any argument. Nobody gets arrested. We get all the permits. We think that we should have one of those within a short period of time.
A little late, 5 days later.
Exactly, yeah.
I think we should put
Here
up
comes the
signs
cavalry.
around the geothermal that say intermittent emergency steam release.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
There they are.
Yeah.
With the truck, oh boy.
Though they always bring the truck.
You called the mayor, are you kidding me? He likes a good show.
What did you call them, Pat?
Oh yeah, this is, oh yeah.
Go ahead.
I posted my story to Billy's page.
Ooh,
Yeah,
Nice.
that's
Good.
that was 2 days ago.
Did you get your
Ooh, damn.
I don't know about anybody else, but I was being really stressed with this hurricane, but knowing that there could be another one right after it.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't hear anybody saying that, but I was stressed out knowing that we only had one more day and we had to go through this again. That, thank God that it went somewhere else, but we were told that it was coming to us again in Hilo, so, I mean, that was double stress.
And most of us would have been exactly the same place we were after the first
Exactly,
hurricane.
exactly.
We were behind piles and piles of trees. Yep.
That's
Gas,
another.
that's a question.
Okay, go ahead.
Are gas masks effective? Are gas masks effective or not effective?
Yeah, I would imagine if they're really sealed and allowed us
The good kind, not the kind you get Home Depot.
You can get them at home.
I mean, I have one, those ones don't even
You
work
said
for
not
paint.
to.
The ones on Depot don't even work for paint.
Those are for drywall dust. Those are for drywall dust.
Oh, I mean, just
The
carbon.
$35 one instead of the $7 one.
It's like $50.
Right, okay, yeah, a lot of those, yeah. I haven't had a lot of luck with those. Military ones work better than those, but yeah. Yeah, because I'd actually painted my house with that one, and it just went right in my wall. They're supposed to. The Home Depot one. The military one I got down at the military school.
This guy,
Yeah, same kind of thing. I was
this woman,
You can see a doctor since that day?
I always saw a doctor today.
and we have a doctor here as well.
He said, I called the doctor, but you can't see the computer.
This is being referred, she's a doctor, and she understands hydrogen sulfide poisoning better than anybody here.
We're just gonna get their vital signs for the ambulance ones, and then if you speak with them, yeah, they get much better.